I pay your salary.
And because he pays my salary, we will leave his laptop alone. Coming up to the stage is Mr. Dave Chronister, founding, managing partner. He handles the tech side, Renee handles the money, and it works perfect that way. When I was first brought on board, after taking Dave's CEH class and doing a lot of study on my own to try and catch up to what I actually needed to know, above and beyond and in more detail, Dave gave me two really good pieces of advice. He said, the thing you need to remember about this job is that if Renee's not happy, I'm not happy, and you won't be happy. So get your deliverables in on time, early if possible. The other thing he told me is, you are going to hit a point when you feel like you cannot do this job, when you feel like it is too heavy and the burden is not well enough, or the burden does not sit well on your shoulders. You won't be able to handle this. And when you hit that point, you need to remember to scream to him, to tell him to let up the pressure. But he had faith in me and would let me continue working, even if I screamed a lot. So I have done a lot of screaming working for Parameter Security, but it has been quite an honor to work under this man who's been hacking longer than I've been alive, mostly. And I love bringing that up. I get to be the youngin'. So I don't think he really needs that much more of an introduction. He's St. Louis's hometown hacker, and a bunch of you have seen him on the news probably. And let's leave it at that. Mr. Dave Chronister.
Take that with you.
Oh, all right, you're not.
I got that. Thanks, everyone. I'm doing most of the introductions, and Renee's like, so are you going to introduce yourself? I'm like, really? Hey, it's me. Introduce myself. All right. Again, my name's Dave Chronister. I've already been up here. I hope you're enjoying the con. It is really cool to see some old friends here and meeting some new people. This talk is probably the first one I've ever done where it was a research project. And it really came from a little bit of frustration that I'll talk about here in a little bit. But a little bit about me. Again, I'm a security practitioner. This is the first time I've ever researched something. Most of my experience comes from actually my years in tech support, all the way up to doing pen tests. So when I tell you that there's something in here, there's not an asterisk that says done in a research laboratory under controlled conditions. This is stuff we're finding in the real world. I am an ethical hacker. Those that you know me, I grew up over here in Maryland Heights. My dad was a St. Louis County cop. My mom was a church secretary. My grandparents had many guns and lived next door as well. So I really had gotten guns, making sure that I didn't do anything wrong, but I was a hellion. So growing up, I found a field that allowed me to actually take that evil side and to use it for good. Don't ask me to hack something if it's illegal. You can find those people on Craigslist. I am a forensic investigator. In the state of Missouri, if someone is doing forensic investigation, they must be a licensed forensic investigator unless you work for the company or work for the government. Please become an investigator. It's a year in jail if you're caught. No one wants a felony record, okay? And finally, an instructor. We run Hacker University. Growing up in the tech world, I hated boot camps, as most of you did, because the instructor knew everything about the book, but could never give us real-world experience. So when we did it, we decided we're going to do it right. Yeah, we'll get you past the cert, but let's actually teach you something. All right. And again, founder of Parameter Security. Please feel free to email me. I will eventually get back to you. Unfortunately, I'm extremely ADD. If your answer is more than, well, my answer requires more than 3 words, it's going to take me about 3 months to phrase it up in my mind. And finally, we fix issues. We are not a solution provider. Your auditor should not be the person that is finding your solution. All right. Let's talk about data. There we go. Don't you have this on the beginning of every data presentation? And everybody goes, wow, what the hell does that mean? I don't know. But, I figured it's a data presentation. We might as well show this. Because really, I honestly think that these are so unrealistic. This is really designed to make the CEOs feel good about ourselves, right? 2012 was the worst year in history on data breaches. Really? Years ago, FBI used to do a survey, and they said less than 2% are actually discovered. I think it's less than that. And I personally know of companies that are required by law to disclose breaches that don't disclose breaches. So what in the world does this mean? Really, all we need to know right now is that data is not secure. Okay? This talk came to the point of, I really get frustrated a lot of times because everybody's talking data, 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 data. What are hackers wanting? Data. Really? I don't watch a lot of news, but I don't remember that hacker that got on the news and said, okay, in 2014, we're going after PII. On 2014, we're going after PHI. We're going after your servers. Again, Sun Tzu says that the art of war is based on deception. Right? How many of you know what a proxy is? Yeah. How would you like it if, FBI showed up at your door saying, hey, you were hacking someone. They didn't need your data. Maybe they're using your processes to crack hashes. That's not your data. However, we'll play the game. So we're going to talk a little bit about data, but one of the questions I had was, well, can we get sensitive data without actually breaching any access controls? How good are organizations these days with actually protecting their data? I always like it when you go in and someone goes, we're doing a real good job. It's like, okay, you really don't have a security program, do you? Other corporations, we go into the meetings and it becomes a grief counseling session. They're just crying. And we're like, listen, it's okay. Everybody's the same place. We have these access controls set up. However, how good and how effective are they? So what I wanted to find out was just how bad information leakage was. So over Christmas, start thinking about this. I said, okay, so where can I actually get or find sensitive data? First one was purchase our old hardware. Everyone's heard about this, right? Buy a hard drive off of eBay and or buy an iPod and be able to get data. But I realized I never did this. So I would go ahead and purchase old hardware off of eBay. Social media sites. Now, we know that Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn shouldn't have sensitive information. It usually does. But the information that we get there is perfect for something along the lines of social engineering. But again, we're looking for sensitive data. So I looked at a different style of social site that we'll talk about. And then finally, FTP sites. And this is from back in my tech services days. I knew a bunch of vendors that would say, hey, FTP this to me, okay? What's the username and password? Don't worry, it's anonymous. It's anonymous, just get in there. Well, isn't that an issue? No, it's an IP address. No one will find it. Okay. All right. So I decided to go ahead and exploit this way. Now, again, a lot of you are in security. A lot of you are friendly competitors, so I don't have to tell you that. For everybody else, this is a demonstration. This is not an instruction manual for criminal behavior. Do not do this, okay? All of the hiding of sensitive data, the really bad rub job, that was me, okay? That was not them. When it's possible, I've been trying to notify the owner, and I've been getting some mixed results. Unfortunately, right now, I have way too many breaches with my own company to work with, but I'm finding way too much data. There's no way I'll be able to notify everybody. And when possible, the identities of the owners have been hidden to protect the security impaired. Okay? So let's go ahead and let's start with old hardware. The process I would use is I was buying media, hard drives, iPhones, and then I would create a forensic image. Now, forensic image is a bit-by-bit image of the drive. Once I create this bit-by-bit image of the drive, I would data carve. Now, what data carving is to recreate data that has been erased or been deleted. See, when you delete from a hard drive, it's just deleting the reference in the file table. The file is still there. So I can manually go in and create data and then maybe profit from it. So I went to eBay. Now, what I did is I looked for people selling, individuals selling a lot of equipment. Okay, at the beginning, what I was looking for were the IT employees that were offloading their old corporate hardware. Because we know that never any IT employee is going to say, hey, look at all this, I'll sell it on eBay. Okay? You know, I tell everybody to turn their cell phones off, and I forgot to turn mine off. Sorry. 2 rounds of purchases. Now, the second round included hardware resellers, and a lot of that was because I really gave them too much credit. I just in full disclosure, our partner and probably one of the places where I spend too much money is EPC. And so I'm used to everybody being like EPC who securely deletes everything. So I'm like, everybody's like that. But this time we decided not to and go after on eBay. So we ended up buying 2 iPhones and 9 hard drives. Now, the total cost was $50 per iPhone and $120 total for all the hard drives. Now, the results. iPhones. I'm not a big fan of Apple, if anybody's talked to me more than 2 minutes. But they are doing something good here. They do forensically clean the phones. In fact, they're making them harder and harder for us in forensics. When you delete something, they are starting to wipe over, forensically zero out that deleted data. So the iPhones really didn't do much. Hard drives that were zeroed out. One kid, and he had his profile on his eBay. He couldn't have been more than 16 years old. He zeroed out the hard drive. Okay? Drives that were repartitioned. So they just killed the partition, but the data that was there, it's about 7 of them. Now, 5 of these were what I would call floor models. You could tell that it was the factory image that was pulled out. And they were just selling the drives. Maybe it was that they upgraded computers and then threw the hard drives in. One of them was from the University of somewhere up north. And I'm pretty sure that it was a library computer because it was filled with term papers, porn, and Trojans. So I'm pretty, that to me says college, university, library. And then we had one that was a large equipment services company. It was their hard drive. I got some customer information, but mostly it was service logs, and they had a lot of time off requests. A lot of time off requests. The 9th hard drive that I found was extremely interesting. Now, when you go and you look at a hard drive in FTK Imager, it'll look something like this. It's going to give you the partitions. Now, for me to figure out something zeroed out, it's pretty easy. You see in the lower right-hand corner, that's showing me the data. In a zeroed out drive, it's just going to be dot, 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 dot. Okay, so I know if I see nothing in there, I'm pretty sure I can just not worry about data carving. It's not there. For these other ones, I would see something like this. I would start to data carve. Now, in this drive, I looked up, and in the upper left-hand corner, it shows me the physical drive, but I saw a plus sign. I'm like, whoa, that means there's partitions. Okay, so they didn't even take the partitions out. Okay, so let's start looking at it. All right, 2 partitions. Partition 2 and partition 1. I open it up. All right. Someone just gave me a hard drive. Now, I will mention, this was from a reseller. I bought this from a hardware reseller and started looking at it a little bit more. And I started finding drives of this young lady. Okay, I also found photos of her dad. I found their birth certificates, and I found their social security cards. And I'm like, that's pretty scummy of a reseller. Then I started looking more. And I started finding photos like this on the drive. Like, that's kind of interesting. Why would an end user have something like this? I started looking at the files. What I realized was this was the reseller's computer. Okay? Not only were they reselling other people's computers, and they have state contracts. I know because she sold them to me. Not only do they have that, but she sold me her own with all of her data. And if you can't read it, some of those folders are logon info. She had all of her credit card info. She had customer info. She does have the greatest lesbian movies in a CFV format. If anybody wants it, I will give it to you. Okay? She had everything. Think about this. This is her own data, and she sold it out there. Okay? So we purchased it from a reseller. Not only was it not forensically cleaned, okay, it wasn't even formatted. Her own personal data was on there. Now, the conclusion here, from my standpoint, is, I got some good information, but it's hit or miss. And really, I think mobile phones you can get more from. The problem is everybody wants to get mobile phones. The question I have for you is, how do you handle end-of-life media? Do you securely wipe it? Do you destroy it? My opinion, securely destroy it. Again, sorry, shameless plug, but they are a sponsor. EPC has the coolest thing in the world. They have hard drive shredders on trucks. And every time I go over there, I see my buddy Brian over there. I'm like, Brian, hey, can I do a hard drive? He's like, no, Dave, you can't do a hard drive again. You've seen the sparks come up, but it is really cool. Go look over at their table, and one of the things you're going to see is they come out into little chunks like this. Good luck trying to restore that, right? You're only going to get $20, $30 for a hard drive. But when you end up giving someone all of your information, that $20 or $30 is not worth it. Okay, so we looked at eBay, and then I started thinking about social media sites. And it hit me one day when I was watching cartoons, and a local bank here was talking about, hey, to upload checks, all you have to do is take a photo of it. Like, who? That's interesting. So I looked at PhotoBucket. Don't raise your hand, but, maybe if you use PhotoBucket, you may want to delete the account real quick. Now, PhotoBucket, it's kind of like Dropbox. I have Dropbox, and my photos automatically get uploaded. PhotoBucket will do the same thing. Unfortunately, one feature PhotoBucket has is they have a recent upload query that you can search and look for recent uploads. If your system is not, if your bucket is not secured, I will see them. Anybody will see them. And so all I have to do is go to the recent uploads, and I can literally just hit refresh, refresh, refresh. And it gives me 82, 83 pages of all of the recent uploads. What I would do is if I found someone's photo that looked a little bit interesting, I would then go and look at their bucket. So again, I was looking for open buckets and I was looking for stuff where pics were automatically be uploaded. And you would get in and you would see something like this. Okay? And if you want to know, I found some little knacks to figure out who to look for. And I can tell because most of you have that evil mentality in here. Before you ask, yes, I did find a lot of these photos. And apparently a lot of girls do twerk for themselves. Those are movies. And guys, I know everybody's like, 5 p.m. tonight, I'm going to go to PhotoBucket. But I have to warn you, you will also find photos like this. And that will give you nightmares. You remember in my class, I said you will see stuff that's not porn, that's not grotesque, but you wish you've never unseen. This is the photo that's been burned in my mind in 2014. I also found quite a few other photos. Oh man, if you're a pot smoker, you love to take photos. This guy lives in Los Angeles, and the reason I know he lives in Los Angeles is he had a bunch of photos of him with his indoor garden, and then he took photos of his welfare application with his name, his address, and everything. I know a guy over at LAPD, I'm like, hey, you may want to look at this. But yeah, apparently if you smoke weed or hashish or any of that, the whole idea is you take photos of weed and money and alcohol, and it works, right? Or you just take money of your money, or alcohol and money, or baby and money. You also find people like that up there, which is really disturbing because he's in the con today. Sorry, Marco. But when I was going through, I also found photos like this, right? Their credit card. And you go, well, that doesn't help you unless you have the CVC card. Don't worry, they gave me that. All right? They also took a photo of one of their receipts. I don't know what Viso Ultra by RAS is. It's a Prodexed matrix complex. I don't care. I have their address now. Credit card, CVC, address. How many people have had their credit cards breached? Right? How many people are sitting there blaming Target, blaming Schnucks? How many people have PhotoBucket with their stupid credit card up there? Understand, you're blaming probably the wrong people. And don't think this is a stupid American thing, because I found quite a few as well that were all over the world. And they too would give me their CVC. Now, why in the world would someone actually take a photo of their credit card? I have no idea. But I found a lot. See, the hardest part in this talk was to narrow down how many photos I would actually use. Some of them were just that bad. Here's one. I could tell that this was a plumber who had gone to someone's house and needed to charge their American Express, so they took their customer's name, address, Amex number, all of that, and then took a photo of it. And it's up there. All the people that do the easy banking now, yeah, there's checks. There are lots of checks on PhotoBucket. Why do I even have to worry about attacking a big bank? I mean, here's the thing. If little Dave Chronister wanted to go after credit cards, I don't need tens of millions of them. I need tens, 20 of them. And try to figure out it was me or how I got that when all I'm doing is going on the site. These were always fun, finding Social Security cards, quite a few of them. I found this guy, and I left his name up there because his name's Michael Moore. And I'm like, I got Michael Moore. And then I realized he never had a red hat on in any of his other stuff. He looked a little skinny, so I realized it wasn't the same Michael Moore. Tax documents. Right, so everybody wants to take photos of their 1040s. Now, what was interesting about this is the dependents. And if you look, you go, well, Dave, you didn't get the entire Social Security number. That's okay. He took another photo to get the rest of it. This next one is actually my favorite because it combined all of it. Money, W-2s, and Social Security numbers in there. Think about this. A lot of people are hitting Use PhotoBucket, and by default, the setting is wide open. So how much information's out there? So I decided to target a couple people. What could I do with someone? Did I have enough to identify them? So my first target, I figured I'd pick appropriately, was a cop in my PD. Okay? And I like this because this was her first photo. Don't judge me because don't judge me. I was born to be perfect, or to be true, not perfect. And then her next photo was this, her Social Security number. You're not perfect, definitely. Social Security number, W-2s. Okay? She had her Social Security number quite a few times, and her W-2 quite a few times. She had personal information. Come to find out, she actually wasn't a cop. She was an actress, and I found her on Facebook. And you want to talk about a really awkward message to send to a stranger? Hi. You don't know me, but I know you. It's like, trust me, I'm a good guy. I've been on CNN, and I realized, well, maybe that's not makes me a good guy, you know? And she's like, oh, thanks, I didn't know, turned it off. Now, one thing I never realized, anybody here that has a CAT card, is it legal or illegal to make images or copies of your CAT card? Illegal. For those of you that don't know what a CAT card is, it's a government ID. So the next ones were a lovely couple. Got a photo of their CAT card and their driver's license. And don't worry, they showed me the back of both of them and his beautiful girlfriend who gave me her CAT card as well. Okay? They also were nice enough to give us username and passwords of all of their Yahoo accounts, their email, to get into school. Think about this. I have them. They're done. There was also, this guy, I contacted the girl on her email because apparently the girlfriend has this knack of surprising him in the shower because there's a lot of scared photos of him like this. And I'm like, that's just going to be a little too awkward. So, the results. Now, I warn you, it will get addicting to do this. You'll just sit there, F5, 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 F5. In fact, I have a buddy of mine, Vaden, who does forensics. And he's like, oh, man. And he actually figured out how he could pull off the perfect armed robbery doing this. He's a good guy, but I'm like, Vaden, he's like, man, I was up till 2 o'clock in the morning. I can ship a UPS, I can pretend to be the UPS guy, and I can take him out. I'm like, Wow. We're not really going to talk too much anymore. In about 8 hours, I got about, a little over 40 credit card numbers. Half of them, I got the front and the back. Okay? Social Security numbers, well over 80. This is in 8 hours, a day's work. Log on information, 30, 35. I also got a lot of personal info, and I got a lot of business secrets because, one of the ones I didn't show that was really interesting is how many people will just sit there and take snapshots of their monitors at work. And I don't know if they were doing that for legitimate or nefarious purposes. 8 hours. Now for me, I looked at this. It's random. It's free. It's very easy. There's no cost. But to me, it'd be, at least for me, I'm not a developer. It'd be hard for me to automate a way to do this. It's probably a way to automate it. But the question I have for you is, how do you control PIC leakage, right? Because you see, DLP is not going to stop a photograph. Okay? So, we did PhotoBucket, and PhotoBucket turned out to be a very, very good conclusion. And actually, it's kind of funny because before I had this talk even set up, I was doing call for papers, and I was accepted to some places. And so you're like, oh crap, I actually hope I have something to talk about, And when you get I got in the PhotoBucket, I'm like, okay, we're good. Okay, so then the next one was, all right, I want to look at FTP sites. Now, what I used is I used Metasploit framework. You can also use Nmap. You can also use John's Shodan. My whole thought was, if I'm actually going to talk on this, I better do the work and not just rely on Shodan and pull this stuff off. So I use Metasploit framework. It has an anonymous FTP scanner. And so what it will do is it goes through, and if it finds an FTP server on port 21, it logs in, and if it can log in, it gives me the header. Okay? And I started running these. Now, got some of the typical findings. Music, people hosting pirating pirating sites with movies. This dude had Captain Ron, so he kind of got mad props because that's a great Kurt Russell movie. It's horrible. It's great. But then I started seeing stuff like this. QuickBooks. Backup. Like, wait a second. Something doesn't seem right because if someone's setting up an FTP site, surely they would know better than to do something like this or something like this. Hey, let's just share a backup of our drive. Pretty scary. And I started looking at the headers. Now, I discovered this February 12th, 11th. I started really investigating this. And I kept noticing that they are all showing ASUS RT AC66U FTP service. I'm like, that's a little interesting. And I found these. Now I'm like, holy crap, I have found something cool. Now that Sunday, I was supposed to speak at B-Sides San Francisco. And I'm running around the office like a giddy little schoolgirl, skipping, jumping, whatever, on the phone with our PR guy. And Ben, who we call Mr. Let's Not Have Fun, he goes, and by the way, the problem is when you plug one of these in, it automatically creates an anonymous FTP site through port forwarding. Okay? I'm like, holy crap, that's awesome. And so I'm all excited. I'm doing all this stuff, and Ben sends me a URL. He goes, hey, look, someone else found it 2 days beforehand. And I was like, are you serious? To give this guy credit, he had been holding off on it since last summer. He had found this, and he went to ASUS, and ASUS's reply was, it's a configuration issue. It's not It's not an exploit. Really? That's interesting. However, when we started looking through this, even with ASUS aside, we started finding some really interesting information. I am not going to post the information. I did not download the information because some states have some very, very, very stupid laws. Like, even though if someone keeps it out in the open and keeps it with anonymous access, if you download it, you can be found, you can be charged. Yeah. So, instead of solving the problem, they try to let's suppress the actual issue and people actually talking about it. But the stuff we found, financial information, lots and lots and lots and lots of financial information. When you find databases called client social security numbers, okay, when you see CSV files that say dumps of client information, and you can tell it's a hospital, and you can tell that it's an accountant, and when you see all of this, and you go, I can't show you because I'm the one that's going to be in trouble. Unencrypted backups everywhere. Again, a lot of times this was just mirroring the information. Medical information. In fact, we found a psychiatrist in Boston that every one of his client psychological profiles were sitting out on the internet with an anonymous FTP site. Now, don't think that there's just a few people looking for this. I got to meet John yesterday, and I'm like, hey, what about this? And he's like, oh, yeah, everybody's searching for this. There's also a couple people that there is a tool out there that they're using. And what it's doing is it's creating these weird directories called AB, 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 AB. Because I would get into a lot of these with read and write, and there would be these empty directories that were AB, 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 AB. So there is someone running a tool that is going in to make sure that it has not only read, but write access as well. Intellectual property, a lot of intellectual property. I saw a Fortune 100 company where it's an IT user, I guess one of their IT employees, and I contacted this person. He had actually taken all of his work information and put it on his NAS at home. And it included corporate passwords, it included schemas, it included all sorts of stuff. Okay? Passwords galore. Apparently everybody has an Excel spreadsheet called passwords. And I actually use that passwords galore because actually one guy called his passwords galore. And this included organizations, multinational companies. Okay? Political voter information. I will tell you that very quickly. I found one of them that I logged into. I saw the person's first name and last name, and I could tell it was someone political, and it was a mayor of a major metropolitan city in the United States, and it was their internal NAS. That one's really kind of interesting to try to get a hold of that person too. I also found voting records, and you know, voting records are public, so I downloaded that one. Interestingly enough, there's a county in the Northeast that has active voters that were born in 1870. So, who says that voting has actually, that people die young these days? In a nutshell, I found everything. Everything. Done. Why do I even need to buy hard drives anymore? Why do I need to look at photo sharing? This is out there. Well, Dave, most of it was the ASUS. No, it wasn't. And I can tell you that ASUS isn't alone. I have found other devices that are out there. Okay? And there is another router that I can guarantee you is doing the exact same thing. There is a media device that's white. It's like this big that some people have. And it's doing the exact same thing. Okay? We're still looking at these, and we're trying to figure them out. Okay? We have contacted the vendors, and we're waiting. We still have 3 more months, and we're going to say something. Okay? Now, one that we did see a lot of was this thing, was a device called a Cloud Box by a developer named Lacey. You guys heard of that? And I bought one of those, and it sat on my table for 2 months while we were setting up this con. And on Saturday, after I taught the class, I'm like, I got to go home and I got to set this up because I want to see what it does. CloudBox has a 2-step instruction. Plug it in and wait for the flashy light. And it says it takes like 10 minutes. I'm not really sure what all it did. And I kind of think I stopped the process because I couldn't wait for the damn flashy light. 9 minutes is too long, right? So I opened up the dashboard. And it really quickly made me realize why there are so many Lacey FTP servers out there. To set up FTP, you just click Enable. That's the only thing you can do with it. It creates an anonymous FTP. And nowhere does it say, no instructions, no warnings, nowhere does it say, warning, everything you put in here will be accessible to everyone. But, you know, if you want to use SSH with that, you can set up an SFTP server. But it's still going to be open to everyone. So how's that IDS working for you? How's that firewall working for you? You know, when you have devices like this that are just going straight out using UPnP and giving all your access out. Why don't we start from the beginning and really start looking at the devices? Now, what else did I find? AC or HVAC FTP services. Apparently, it's standard practice to just set the config files in an anonymous FTP because we find those everywhere. Digital signs, upload the artwork, they show up on the highway. And Renee's like, hey, you should put a ShowMeCon one in there. I'm like, no. No, I know you're all into marketing, but we're not doing that. I also start seeing a bunch of this. If you can't read, in the root FTP, I have NT detect with read-write access. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, people were sharing their C drive with read and write access. Now, that's not a mistake. That's someone that actually thought, that actually had to go through the motions to set up that FTP site. Now, this one was a little interesting because it was all in French. And I'm like, I don't speak French. And so I kept yelling at Renee in the other room, what does this mean? And she's like, this. And she's like, what in the hell are you doing? I'm like, nothing. Don't worry about it. But the one thing I thought was really interesting was the first log is called agent surveillance. And that's, agent surveillance. It's kind of weird. And I started investigating a little bit more. I had read-write access. Well, eventually what I found out was in France, you know when you go to the hospital, you watch really crappy TV, and you have a really crappy phone? They have really good TVs and halfway decent phones, but you have to pay for them. And this was the computer that handled all the transactions. This computer was also on their internal network. Okay? with C, read and write access. So not only was there PCI violations, because yes, credit card numbers were there, but there was also safe harbor. Anybody in the medical field knows that patient information and certain information should be protected around the world. Also, at this point, all I need to do is put some sort of malware on there and reboot the system. Or when the system reboots, I have access. Okay, so in this one, the results, and I'm still scanning. My wonderful ISP in St. Louis, I won't mention their names because they're here, gave me a warning because I'm scanning, and then when I read the you're illegally hacking, you've accessed, I'm like, yeah, this doesn't even apply to me, but okay, I'll proxy somewhere else. So, you know, proxied into their competitors' servers and start scanning them. So right now I'm scanning about a half of a Class A. I've gotten through 3,000 plus FTP servers, and I would say less than 100 are actually legitimate. There is a whole bunch of information out there that people don't realize are out there. This is the path of least resistance. So when we're looking at our organizations, when we're looking at our data and we're looking at our protection, we got to quit getting so deep down and sometimes take a step back and go, what are the easy stuff that could be affecting us? We're too busy looking at our DLP. We're too busy looking at our network segmentation. And then we have someone in accounting that plugs this in. Not to pick on accounting people. Or someone in IT that plugs this in. And the data's all out there, and you know nothing about it. Any questions? It very well could have. You know, I was getting some of these so quickly that I did not really try to match them. But very well, it could have. Click, click. Yes. Same with maybe some of the Social Security cards as well. Any others? Yes. No, I contacted a few of the vendors. And it's amazing to try to talk to tech support and say that there's an issue with the way that their stuff's set up. And they're like, okay, sir, did you reboot it? And I'm like, can you just let me talk to the right people? So we're still contacting. And one of the things I am doing is I'm trying to buy these various models that I think they are. That Lacy box, there's another Lacy box that I think is that may automate it as well. Did I contact any of the lawyers to do class action lawsuits? I did not, because I think the class action lawsuits are a scam.
Well, that may be true, but in this case, ACES won't clean up the mess, and nobody's being told about it.
You know, I don't have an ACES, and I think one of the problems is for me to be the plaintiff, or I would have to have had that issue. Yeah, you know, my job's not to get into suing people, because here's the problem with doing something like that on contacting a lawyer about it, is it really, instead of people really starting to look at it and realize there's issues, they may try to start to deny, and that's the problem that I have. So I'm going to contact the corporations, and I think most of the people in this field are the same way. We want the stuff fixed, right? And so if they don't fix it, we're just going to have to let other people know about it. And then what happens after that happens. Any others? Almost all of the non-router ones, I'm not really sure if the drive is plugged into the router as well. I'm not sure. I mean, when the router is the NAS, is that going to actually stop it? But some of the others definitely. There's a few that I was dealing with. It was kind of weird, and I actually got a hold of Ralph like a couple months ago because you could tell very quickly it was dealing with Hollywood, and I'm like, Ralph, here you deal with this. That there seems to be maybe some internal operating system, one that is turned on, because I don't know. There's a few of them that are strange that it almost looks like someone had to create this FTP site, but you would wonder why someone would have created that. What I found is a lot of these different FTP, a lot of these NASs use a very specific version of an FTP, like Pro FTP server. One of them uses 131. No, sorry, 133, because 131 is vulnerable, which would have been a double whammy. So one of the things I'm going to start to do is grep through and really start to look for 1.3.3. Any others? Yes. On the devices? I don't know, because the question was, am I seeing the difference between the OS that comes on the devices and open source out there? And again, realize it's weird. It's just literally just showing me time after time after time after time the headers. And so a lot of times what I'm just doing is after that, I'm just logging in. What does it see? What did I see? What do I see? What do I see? And a couple of the ways I'm able to figure out who they are is they have instruction manuals, right? And that's one way I was able to figure out. Also, when you start to see the headers look alike. There's quite a few of them that are out there, and some of them create a directory structure automatically. There's quite a few of them out there. I mean, you know, just in this, I saw 3,000. And without really doing a deep investigation, which honestly I haven't really done because I was looking more at the data than the devices. There may be issues. May not be. Okay. Any others? One more? Oh, that's a good question. The EXIF data. You can always tell the forensic people in the house. They're like, EXIF data. No, I didn't see any. I don't know if PhotoBucket deletes it. And for those of you who don't know, EXIF data is the data embedded that can show when it was taken, what type of photo, and maybe even GPS coordinate of where it was taken. I don't know if it was, if it stripped it out, but the ones that I looked at did not have any EXIF data in it. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I hope you appreciate the talk, and I hope the rest of the con is enjoyable. Thank you.